Welcome to Alberta Conservation Association's Harvest Your Own podcast, the resource for everything hunting, navigating through the field, the butcher shop, and the kitchen. Life is all about great food. Let's get started.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Brad Fenson, an avid outdoor enthusiast who has worked as a freelance journalist, photographer, and public speaker for over 3 decades. I have hunted, fished, and foraged all my life and hope to share my passion for the outdoors. Along the way, I want to encourage everyone to harvest wild proteins and enjoy the satisfaction of providing the next meal for your family. Our goal is to educate, entertain, and inspire individuals to get outdoors and create a connection between food, health, and your future meals. Welcome to Harvest Your Own. Today I have an old friend visiting by telephone. And so we've had a lot of adventures over the years. I think we've hunted waterfowl and pheasants and elk and deer and axis deer and who knows what else. But the one thing in common with all those trips and the adventures is cooking wonderful meals outdoors afterwards. Welcome, Brooks Hansen.
Hey, Brad. Thanks for having me on. Super excited to talk all things hunting / all things food. I know whenever you and I get together, the salivatory glands get a little wet.
Yes, we've had a lot of fun, and we've shared a lot of great meals together and cooked a lot of great meals for other people that sort of taught them new techniques and how to appreciate different wild game.
Do you remember that one time we were in Montana and we shot a doe the first day and ate the entire deer that week?
I do. I remember that well because the landowners came down and ate with us the one night, and they're like, "This is deer? Are you kidding me? Can we bring our family back tomorrow for dinner?" And, you know, they brought the kids and everyone the next day, and everyone was amazed, and they all made a decision they were going to go out and hunt deer. They'd never done that.
That was pretty amazing. We were able to polish off like an entire deer.
Yes.
In like 4 days. But we did have it wasn't just you and me. There was about 5 of us.
Yes, it was good. And, you know, we did everything. I remember doing the whole front shoulders with the blades in them in the cast iron Dutch ovens and cooking them down, braising them down until that bone just slid out of them. And it was, you know, sweet and tender and so flavorful. It was such a great meal.
Pretty cool.
Yes. What is your current position and where do you work?
So I'm a camp chef. Actually, I work for Revelist. Revelist is a parent company to multiple outdoor brands. And the 2 brands that I oversee are Camp Chef and Primos and Hoppies. And then there's a couple brands that fall under that Primos brand, like Champion, Bee Sting, or Gold Tip. But my main brand that I probably am the most well-versed in is Camp Chef. I've been with them for 13 years. And then just taken on the Primos line and Hoppies and Champion in the last year and a half. So yeah, I would say that I know my cooking gear. I don't know how good I am at using it, but I know it and understand it. And I've been very fortunate to meet people like yourself out in the field where we're hunting or fishing or doing something outdoors, and we always get to experience the reward of eating the wild game or the fish that we've caught or killed.
Yeah. It's made life pretty special.
It has. It really has.
And I think you're a little too modest about not being real good with the table fare because you've hosted many outdoor events where you've had media come in and cooked for them, and whether it's pork side ribs or a deer backstrap or some ducks and geese wrapped in bacon to tacos. I don't know. We've had so many different things I can't even begin to list them all off. But all of them are great, but fairly easy to make too. It's not like they're rocket science and really intricate recipes that you have to get into.
You know, wild game it can be intimidating by people because they're so worried about it tasting muttony or gamey. But realistically, if you treat it like you would a regular cut of beef that you're used to eating, it's going to be just as good. You're not going to want to overcook those tender cuts of meat, and you're not going to want to undercook those tough cuts of meat. By just following that simple advice, you're not going to get that muttony gray taste.
Right.
And my favorite thing is like deer, elk, antelope, all those things are so good, and they're so good at how they are. Meaning, like not saying plain, like a little salt and pepper and sear backstrap. Just taste it and try it. If you cook it right and take care of it right, you'll be blown away by how good it is.
Yeah,
I think there's an intimidation factor with people. Like they're worried it's not going to be good, but there's a lot of resources. You're a main resource, meaning Brad Fenton, on how to properly cook and take care of those animals.
Yeah, you influenced me too, because you are right about tasting the animal and appreciating it for its own values. And I remember the axis deer we harvested in Hawaii, and just like you said, some simple salt and pepper on it, and put it on the grill, seared it. It was done medium rare. It came off tender and so delicious. It was crazy.
Pretty amazing. It's funny. I went out to dinner. Well, no, we went for ice cream with some friends that lived by us. There was about 4 or 5 of us couples that got together and went out and basically looked for a way to get out on the evening. And we were sitting down enjoying ice cream, and a couple of us were talking hunting. And one of the guy's wives spoke up, and she's like, I grew up with my dad hunting, and my husband hunts, and kids hunt, and I just don't like deer. And I'm like, well, you had deer done right. And she's like, of course. She's like, but I just don't like it. It scares me because of all the parasites and all the things in it. And I looked her in the eye, and I'm like, look, that this deer organically in the wild is probably a lot more pure and a lot healthier than that piece of beef that was raised in a corral or around all the other cows. It's not organic or free range or however you want to put it. And it's probably a lot more healthy for you. And she had the hardest time understanding that. And I told her, I said, there's a lot of times if I have a really nice, well, I'm cutting up a deer after it's hung and dry aged and it's nice and cool. And if I'm trimming off all the silver skin and getting it prepped to either cook or put it in the freezer, I'll take a little chunk of that backstrap and just taste it. And you can taste how pure it is.
Right.
And she looked at me and she's like, you're crazy. You have to cook it all the way well done to cook the parasites out. And I was like, that's such a fallacy that is perceived by so many people all over the world, that you've got parasites in these animals and you got to cook it out. That's just wrong. Like, it's pure, organic, lean meat, and a deer backstrap, an elk backstrap, an antelope backstrap, it's meant to be cooked medium rare. If you really want to enjoy it, medium rare is where you're going to get the true flavor and taste. And it's not going to be muttony and gray and taste like really bad jerky. The second you overcook it because you think you're cooking the parasites out, that's where it tastes bad. And that's why people don't like it, is because they feel like you got to do that. So it's our goal, Brad. That's our challenge, to change the world.
Yeah, I think that's a throwback from the 1950s when our grandmas and great-grandmas had all the warnings about trichinosis in domestic pork. There were parasite problems, but that has all been cleared up. And, the lady you were talking to, it explains a lot in terms of why she doesn't like venison. If she's cooking everything well done, I often tell people, if you take a chicken breast and overcook it by 20 minutes and try to eat it, you're not going to like it. It's going to be like eating a brick of chalk, so
absolutely
keeping some moisture in it and understanding that the meat is pure and clean and parasite free, just like your beef, and nowadays like your pork as well. They got rid of trichinosis in pork over 20 years ago, and we've seen changes. That's why you no longer have to cook it like extreme well done. And you go to a restaurant now, you can still see a bit of pink in the pork that they cook, and that's because times have changed, and we've come up with ways to control how we raise our livestock. The good news is we've never had to worry in most of our wildlife species, only the predators like black bears and cougars, where we could have some trichinosis, just like we were talking about in pork. Mm-hmm. But, deer, moose, elk, absolutely. I don't know if most people have ever heard of steak tartare, but it's raw steak that's cubed up, and you mince it with onions, and it's got egg yolk in it and stuff like that. But it's a real treat, and it allows you to taste the meat. And any type of venison will make a great tartare. Absolutely.
Good stuff. So, all right, sorry, I didn't mean to get on a tangent there for you, Brad.
No, I think it's important to talk to these about these things in public, because I'm sure somebody's listening like, oh, I would not eat deer unless it was cooked well done. well, maybe you need to look into it. Educate yourself about the risks, because in fact there are none. Just like they can serve beef rare or medium rare or even blue rare in a restaurant, you can do the same with wild game. But like I said, if you're concerned about it, don't do it with predators.
Well, here's the other thing. If you don't like it medium rare, that doesn't mean you can't eat deer. Let's move on to another cut. Let's go to like one of those tougher cuts, like a shoulder.
Yep.
Or a really a roast that's got a lot of sinew in it, or more tendons that needs to be broke down. Let's cook that low and slow for a long time. Let's talk 8 hours. Then you're gonna kill off whatever parasites your brain told you it had.
Right.
And you're gonna treat it just like a roast, like maybe an osso buco. Maybe you take the shanks. I mean, there's a lot of sinew in a shank. But, a pork shank or a bison shank or a beef shank in a restaurant like an osso buco, that's a really well-known high-end dish. And you can do that with wild game if you're nervous about eating it medium rare. So there's kind of that really cool sweet spot where if it's a soft, tender cut of meat, that's what you're going to do medium rare, hot and fast.
Right.
If it's a big muscly cut of meat, that's what you're going to do low and slow. And you've got to do it low and slow. You can't go almost slow and almost slow because it's not going to break down, and then you're going to run into that muttony, sinewy taste. You're going to want to go really low and really slow.
It's a game of patience.
Like I say, 8 hours. Yeah, that's the whole point. You're going to break down those muscles. You're going to break down all the collagens that are holding it together, and it's going to add flavor, and you're going to eat it, and you're going to say, holy cow, this was amazing.
Yes, and it's interesting because all of those connective tissues do cook out over time. It's why you need time into gelatin and collagen, which adds to the flavor and to the health benefits. If you were a active skier on one of the Olympic teams, you would take gelatin to help protect your knees and stuff. Well, we can do that with wild game if we cook it right. And that low and slow process, I like to say we cook it until it surrenders. And I think that's a good way to describe
Absolutely.
it. Yeah, you can't overcook
Absolutely.
it. And that's what we did with those deer in Montana. We did the whole front shoulders bone in, put them on, and we went hunting for the day and came back. And man, they had cooked down. They were super tender. There wasn't a piece of meat in there that didn't break apart.
I remember how amazing I was pulling that front shoulder blade out, and everything was delicious.
This podcast is produced for Harvest Your Own, a program dedicated to those who want to reconnect with food and health through their experiences outdoors. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a resource for individuals to learn more about hunting and the outdoors. There's information to get you started and ensure that your compass stays pointed in the right direction to be successful. Where's your next meal coming from?
If I remember right, didn't we take one of the hind big roasts and we cured it like a ham?
We did.
And we did a ham out of one too.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We used some curing salt, and we did it with canned pineapple and pineapple juice as the liquid.
Yep.
We brined it up for several days, and then we put it in the smoker and went hunting for the day and came back, and that whole deer leg was done up perfectly, and I don't even think we had any leftovers.
No, we did not. They like the deer ham. So that's just my little bit of soapbox. Is there's so many things you can do with wild game, and you really get the pure taste and see what it is. Like when people say, "Man, this doesn't even taste like deer," it's like, no, it should taste like deer because deer tastes good.
Right.
You're just saying it tastes like deer supposed to be tasting.
I find that with waterfowl all the time too. I actually put on several events like the waterfowl warm up where we go out and we actually cook ducks and geese for the participants. And there's normally about 150 people. And over the years, when we first started doing it, people would come up and say, "Oh, I love to hunt ducks and geese, but my family won't eat it." Well, we have slowly changed opinion over the year because we show them how to do it properly. We give them recipes that are easy to take home and convert ducks and geese into delicious meals that are full of flavor and they're super tender. They're still moist. Again, it's cooking style. Once you learn how to cook wild game and deal with an already lean meat, which can make it dry, and learn how to cook it properly, it can be perfect.
Absolutely. Such sound advice.
Now, I'd like to talk a little bit more about smokers because I find that Smokers are magic to me. It allows you to cook low and slow, but it allows you to infuse a bunch of different flavors. You can get everything from different flavors from your wood chips and the smoke that you put on it, to charring it at the end or searing it to finish it. You can wrap it in peach paper and put apple cider vinegar on your meat to help break it down. There's so many ways to use your smoker to cook wild game that it's you could write a cookbook on it.
Oh my goodness, you're exactly right. And something really cool with the Camp Chef pellet grills and smokers, you can mount a sidekick on the side that gives you a 30,000 BTU burner, and that one unit, there's nothing you can't cook. If you want to sear, you can sear. If you want to go low and slow, you put it in the pellet grill and go low and slow. If you want to smoke something. If you want to go hot and fast, you can turn the pellet grill up hot, and you can pull the sliding grill on one model to kiss it with some flames. Or you can turn on the sear box to the side and get that up to 1,000 degrees and put a really quick sear crust on it after it's been in the smoker for a little bit, like a reverse sear method, one of my favorite ways. But you're right. It's amazing. I always think back like these kids that like to play video games. They're always trying to find cheat codes. You know what I mean? They want a cheat code, how to pass a level really fast, or how to get extra strength. You put a Camp Chef pellet grill on your patio, it's a cheat code. Because now you're getting 5-star flavor, 5-star meals, and you may not be a trained 5-star chef. It really makes you look like a rock star. I remember the first time I started cooking on a pellet grill, the flavor was just incredible. Somebody's like, "How did you do this?" And I'm like, "I just cooked the meat, seasoned it, slapped it on there, set the temp, and walked away. Checked it when it was ready and pulled it off." Right. I put the meat thermometer in it, and once it hit my desired temp that I was trying to target, it was ready to go. And like I say, it's a cheat code. It's just so simple to use. You've got an electric control unit that's digital, so you can set your temp at whatever temperature you want. And then it's gonna run that fire pot and that fan and keep that temperature perfect. And then you can monitor the internal temp of your meat with your meat probes. It's awesome.
Yeah, it really is a cheat code. It makes it super easy. And, when you're talking about a fire pot and this stuff, it is an electric smoker. You plug it in. It's got a heating rod that creates heat, and the pellets are augered in over top of it into that pot. And it's how much heat goes into them and how fast those wood pellets burn determines how much heat is generated, correct?
Exactly, yeah. So if you're going to have more pellets and the fan's going to run a little stronger to burn that fire hotter, it's kind of like if I'm going to go sit around a fire with my family, and as soon as I started, I just loaded up with wood, and there's big flames, and it's really hot and fast. And if I want to keep that type of fire, I'm going to be feeding it and putting sticks on it every 30 seconds because I want a big flame fire. But if I just want to get some heat and I want it to be a little bit lower heat, I'm going to let that fire burn down to like some coals and just get really low and slow. And maybe you're sitting around and you're not putting fire on it as often. And that's really how the fire pot works. It's putting more wood on the fire to keep it hot and get that flame going, or it's going to slow it down and not feed it as much to keep that temperature, a little lower, a little slower, and it's going to add more smoke. Because think when a fire starts to burn out in the fire pit and starts getting a little low, you're going to get a lot more smoke when it's burning at that lower temp.
Yeah, that's a great description. And, I would have to describe these as a modern smoker. I remember one of my first trips to the Yukon, I met with a buddy and we went out and caught a bunch of Arctic grayling and lake trout and came back. And I said, "We should smoke these." He said, "I don't have a smoker." So we found a 45-gallon drum and took it apart and built shelves in it. And we built ourselves a smoker. We had to get some coals and some stuff going in that we could put in the bottom and cut some green alder and put our fish in there. And it turned out wonderful. But it wasn't as controlled as what most smokers are today. A lot of it is a bit of a guessing game. And over the years, I've had kettle smokers and little smokers that you plug in that can never really get hot. They just produce more smoke than anything. I've even used my barbecue with wood chips in it to smoke. But the modern pellet grill, and it's better to call it a pellet grill because you can do so much more with it than just smoke, really gives you the control that a chef has with meat thermometers and probes and sous vide and everything else, but with accents of flavor that are beyond imagination.
And it's so easy. And it's amazing because it's funny. You think fire is dry, right? Like when something is burning, it's taking a lot of the moisture out. But for some odd reason, when you cook with wood, it infuses so much more moisture in the food. I feel like that moisture is just drawn from the fire into the meat. It's just almost like a sponge. You know, if you put like a sponge or something that's supposed to wick moisture or draw moisture in a room with condensation, it's going to kind of gravitate and feel that sponge. And that's really how your meat or protein, or it could even be vegetables, act in that smoker. As that wood is burning, all the moisture is just getting sucked into that loin or ribs or whatever it is, like a sponge. And so when you cut into it, you can just squeeze the juice out of it. It's just so much more tender, so much more moist. It's easy. It's like if you can set your oven at home and turn it to 350 degrees, then you can turn a pellet grill on and turn it to 350 degrees.
Yeah. And, you know, like you said, Brooks, there's so many ways to control it. I use the meat probes in there all the time. So there's a probe that you can plug into the smoker. You put it in your deer loin or elk loin and start smoking, and you can check the temperature until it comes out like exactly where you want it. You want it rare, you cook it to 125. You want it medium rare, you cook it to 135. If somebody insists on something beyond that, you can cook it to 145, but I wouldn't go beyond that. But you can actually monitor it and take it off at the precise times, or you can cook it to a rare state and then sear it where it brings it up to medium rare. So you really do have an incredible amount of control.
Absolutely. And with that sidekick, let's say you're just going to cook something in the smoker the whole time, but you want like a sauce to go on it. Like you maybe want to do like a blackberry glaze. You can just take a skillet and put on the sidekick and make your sauce. So you don't even have to, everything's just done right there.
If I'm not mistaken, when we were cooking axis deer backstraps in Hawaii, I think you used guava jam and butter and stuff to make a sauce that was pretty ridiculous on the meat.
You know what? I remember that. Yeah, we did. It was fresh. Didn't we pick some fresh guavas one day? I think we did.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
I can't remember.
We had so many fresh things there to work with, mangoes and coconuts that we got to, drink the fresh coconut water off it and stuff like that. It was a pretty sweet trip. But
we did make a guava jam glaze over the Hawaiian axis deer backstrap. That was pretty good. That was fun.
It was. And we talk about control. One of the things I like about the modern smoker is it works with a busy life. So lots of times I'm working on a recipe or cooking something. I'm like, oh man, I forgot this. I can run to town and go pick up stuff, but I can monitor my smoker the whole time.
Yeah, we have models that have Wi-Fi capability. Most all of them, but I think one have Wi-Fi capability, where you can do that. You can put it in. I don't want to really say set it and forget it because I don't want you to forget about your meat out there. But you can set it, and you can monitor it from your phone as it's connected to the Wi-Fi. And if you needed to run and pick up the kids from school, you could still monitor to make sure everything's good. We don't want to leave it unattended too long, but you're right. If you've got a busy lifestyle and maybe you got working in the yard and doing some chores, you're not babysitting a smoker. You're not adding sticks and trying to keep that temp up. Although I know that's a fun pastime for a lot of people to sit around a smoker and babysit it because there's just a social aspect that people really enjoy. However, it's a really small niche. A majority of us have busy lifestyles, but we really want to enjoy great food. And that's really what a pellet grill allows you to do is you put your meat in, you set your temperature, and then you can kind of keep an eye on it from your phone or maybe just check on it every once in a while. But you really can go multitask. Yeah,
it's interesting. We did a brisket one time when we went out salmon fishing. We were up at 4:30 in the morning, threw the brisket on the grill, headed down to the dock, took the boat out. We were an hour and a half offshore. We went fishing all day, and we monitored the brisket, and when it hit the specific time where we had to change the heat, we just made the adjustment right on our phone. And when we came in later that afternoon, it was almost done. We got some fish put away. The brisket came off. We wrapped it up, put it in a towel, put it in a cooler, let it rest, and had a shower and came out, and we enjoyed a beautiful, huge brisket that was done to perfection, and we hadn't looked at it all day.
Sounds like you pushed the easy button.
Well, there's another message in there. We didn't look at it all day. It's not like we forgot about it. We put it on and we monitored it. But I like to tell people there are a couple tricks to using a smoker and getting good results. And barbecuers aren't the same as smokers. I see people opening the lid, checking the meat, flipping it more than once, doing all these things. If you're going to use a smoker, you got to be patient. But beyond patience, you have to have trust. And that means don't open that lid. And the saying is, if you're looking, it ain't cooking. Because every time you open the lid, you let out all the heat.
You're losing heat.
Yeah, and then it takes probably 10 minutes at least for that smoker to come back up to that same temperature and start cooking the meat again, or you might have even lost some heat in your meat to bring it back up. So if you're a peaker and you're opening your smoker every 10 minutes, your meat's never going to cook.
Yep. If you're looking, you ain't cooking.
I'm sure you've heard
Just
that.
Leave it alone.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just leave it alone. Let it now. There's got to be a time where you might need to do a really quick check because sometimes things are done off feel. But for the most part, that's a really rare case. For the most part, just trust the process. Put your meat in, and if you've got the temperature probes monitoring, then you know what that internal temp is. So you don't need to be doing that every 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's the magic. So, I mean,
absolutely.
Even if you have an older model smoker at home and you use it and it doesn't have the probes, get a meat thermometer. I mean, they're magic in terms of making sure that things are done to perfection. It is that control over temperature that produces the outstanding meat at the end of the day.
Yep, you're exactly right. And there's so many different really good meat probes that you can get on the market today. There's a lot of good ones that are really accurate.
Absolutely. Yeah, to the a tenth of a degree. So, we talk about you and I have enjoyed some good steaks in Las Vegas and stuff over the years too, and a lot of those high-end restaurants would use a sous vide to basically preheat the steaks to the temperature they want, where they just have to grill them and bring them up, give them some look, some char, and bring them up to the finishing temperature. Well, basically your smoker's doing the same thing, but instead of throwing it on a grill to char it and bring up the temperature, you just monitor that temperature on your thermometer or your probe. And that temperature control, again, I'm going to reiterate it, is the control that produces the outstanding meat that isn't dried, that isn't overcooked, that's perfect every time you bring it out.
Yep, absolutely right. Time and temperature is such a key when you're cooking. I always say Dutch oven and smoking.
Right.
Trust the process, be patient, and there's some time and temperature.
Yeah. This podcast was made possible by Alberta Conservation Association and the Harvest Your Own community. If you're interested in harvesting your own food, there's a comprehensive collection of information. To gain insight and knowledge, head to the field, harvest your own protein, prepare it, and taste the results. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a library of information from getting started and geared up to processing, butchering, and cooking wild game to make the connection between health and food.
I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about our wood pellets and the different varieties that are available and how it influences meat. So I have a bunch of different pellets that I use with my Camp Chef smoker. And when I'm doing fish, I think my absolute favorites are alder and cherry wood or apple wood. It seems to give it a really nice flavor, a nice finish. It's not overpowering. It's a little bit more, I don't know if it's the right word to say delicate, if smoke is delicate, but it's as delicate as the fish. It doesn't overpower it.
No, I think you're exactly right. I'm a big fan of the fruitwood stuff, like cherry, apple, like you mentioned. Alder is a really mild wood, which is perfect for fish. But when you're wanting to do something like super strong and you want a really deep barbecue flavor, that's where you start dipping into like the hickory and the mesquite. That's where you're going to get like a really deep, smoky, real raw, smoky flavor. Yeah. So every wood burns a little different.
Yeah. When you use the hickory and mesquite, I'd say it's a punch of smoke. You can actually overdo it and make it acrid, but you want that strong, smoky flavor and a good punch to it. Yeah. The hickory and the mesquite are magic.
Absolutely right. My wife's not a big fan of smoky flavor. She likes everything that comes off the pellet grill, but she doesn't want a deep, deep smoke. Like when we we ever go out or she wants ribs, she's like, well, I don't want them really smoky. That's how she kind of judges good ribs. And so we have a competition blend that's really good. It's an alder base, but has a little bit of cherry in it and a little bit of hickory. That's really mild. And alder, just a basic alder or oak, that's going to be your more mild flavors. And then all your fruit trees. We particularly have an apple and a cherry, and they're fantastic. They're mild, but there's just enough smoke. It's kind of a really good in-betweener, and it's a little sweeter smoke flavor.
Yeah, it works. Like I said, I really like it on fish and delicate game birds like pheasants and rough grouse that are white meat that you could overpower real quickly. I agree that those fruit woods are ideal. If you're doing something more robust and flavorful like a moose roast, though, it's nice sometimes to throw in some hickory, and I often blend my pellets. I'll let the major smoke be something that's a bit milder, but then I'll throw in some hickory to blend the pellets and add a bit more flavor at the end, but not overpower it with the whole smoking process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and now you also...
It's a good idea. Mix the pellets up.
Yeah, absolutely. I do that often. And you guys actually have a charcoal blended pellet as well, for those that like the flavor of old barbecue.
Exactly. Like people really like that charcoal flavor, where the old hickory charcoal or the big lump charcoal. So that lump charcoal was ground and then compressed with air, no additives, compressed with air and a little bit of liquid, and mixed with like a cherry wood or a hickory wood is the two that we have. So it's a char cherry or a char hickory, and it just gives you a little darker flavor, but it's really good, very popular.
Yeah, my family likes it. I often do our steaks with that. I'll start it off, or even some waterfowl. I do cook a lot of ducks and geese on there. I also make things like goose bacon. When the geese are really fat, I'll pluck them, keep the skin and that fat on there. I'll brine them and then smoke them to give them that really nice, heavy smoked flavor that you'd have in a good bacon. And you can slice that goose into strips, and it is outstanding. It really does come out like bacon, where when you cook it, the fat renders out, but you've got all that smoky flavor and the flavors of the brine that you use as well.
Wow. Love it.
Yeah. So there's, basically the world's your oyster when it comes to smokers. You can cook anything on it. You mentioned vegetables, and if you've ever had smoked onions to work with or smoked corn on the cob, you might consider it the best you've ever eaten. Asparagus, we do stir fries in there as well. Fish, wild game. Over the years, we've cooked a pile of different things, Brooks. I think one of
even bake. I was going to say, even bacon like squash. I mean, it's the similar thing that you do in the oven is what you can do in a pellet grill, because you can turn that up. It's convection heat. So you can turn that up to 400 degrees. Maybe you want 350 to 450. You could turn that up to those higher temps, and it's not direct flame. It's circulated by the fan. It's convection just like your oven. So you're baking, but you're just baking with a little wood flavor. So you're right, like squash and veggies, all that stuff is just so good and so easy in the pellet grill.
Yeah, we often get a double smoked flavor because I'll brine and smoke some shanks and then cook those with beans and make some very flavorful beans with the shank, which is like a ham almost. And then we'll actually put it in trays and put it in the smoker and cook it on there so it picks up even more flavor. We've done that with mac and cheese too. We'll make a big batch of macaroni and cheese and put it in the smoker to finish it off and smoke that cheese on top of it. It's just wonderful.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, I remember one of the unique things we did was in Saskatchewan when we were on a waterfowl hunt. We saved all the hearts out of the ducks and geese and brined them and put them on skewers and smoked those as well. And I would have to say that they surprised almost everyone in camp. They were super tender, they were flavorful, and everyone's like, man, I've never kept these before, but I know I'm going to keep some in the future.
Do you remember that one year we were hunting in Manitoba and we took all the goose breasts? We shot just, like 60 geese. There were 11 of us. We shot an 11-man limit. And I don't know how many, they were big honkers too. Big, thick, heavy honkers that people don't want to eat. But you remember we took them back to the house that night and we found a grinder and we ground them all and made ground meat out of all the breasts out of those. And then we took them to the field the next day. We had seasoned it, kind of like sausage seasoning, and let it sit overnight, that ground meat. Then we took it in the field, and as soon as we got our limit the next day, we popped open the Camp Chef and we made what we called the McHonker. You remember that?
I sure do. Yeah, we ground some bacon ends in with the goose meat to give it a bit of moisture, and they were outstanding. I mean, the guys that were on that trip, even when I talk to them today, they still talk about the McHonker.
That was pretty amazing. That was awesome.
Yep. Those are the good days. Overall, I know this could be a tough question, but what would be your absolute favorite recipe for wild game on the smoker?
So my favorite go-to, I know a lot of people gravitate towards like a backstrap because it's easy. I'm a steak guy. I like it. I do love the things low and slow, like an osso buco. But my favorite, I've had a couple the last little while that I've really enjoyed. One is a venison parmesan that is really, really good that you can do on the smoker, and it's incredible. Another one that I really like is I just like a plain backstrap seasoned with salt and pepper, or I might use a little bit of Camp Chef all-purpose, and I just reverse sear it. So I smoke it to about 100 degrees internal temp at about 200 degrees. So the smoker's at 200 degrees, and I wait till the internal temp gets to about 95 to 100, and then I pull it out on the skillet on the side. I have it cranked up to about 800, 900 degrees, and I have a little bit of butter, rosemary, and garlic on that hot plate or skillet, and I take that backstrap and I sear it for about a minute and a half on each side, and that finishes it right to about 118 to 120, and then I'll let it rest to about 125. So I'll pull it off, let it rest for about 15, 20 minutes.
Yes.
And while it's resting, I take a skillet, bring the temp down, and then I make like a blackberry reduction sauce. So I usually use a Cabernet, so I like a red wine, and I've got some rosemary, garlic, and butter, and then blackberry preserves and fresh blackberries. So I reduce the jam or the preserves down in all those other mixins, and then add some butter and reduce it down, and then deglaze the pan with some wine, cook it out, and then add the fresh blackberries in it and let them just cook and soften a little bit. Your meat's done resting because that sauce takes about 10, 15 minutes. That meat can rest anywhere 10 to 20 minutes. Pull it off, slice it on the bias, and then just pour that glaze, that blackberry jam glaze over it, and it's pretty dang good.
Yeah, I'd say it sounds like a winner. My girls love grouse and pheasant, where I butterfly the breast and put some pesto in there and some cheese, and then wrap the whole thing in bacon and put them on the Camp Chef. And I'm glad you brought up the temperature things. You know, I hardly ever set my temperatures over 225, 200, 225 in there to cook things for dinner, and let it smoke until it brings the temperature up within the meat. But grouse, even wrapped in bacon, the bacon is nicely rendered out. It's tightens up on those grouse breasts, and they are absolutely wonderful. We just had some the other night.
Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
Yeah. And
so it sounds like I need to get out and shoot more grouse.
Everyone needs to get out. There's never enough grouse in the freezer. Brooks, I'd like to thank you for sharing your information, your wisdom, and your passions today. Smoking is one of mine too. I use my smoker year round. I do have the heated or the insulated covers for it. So, you know, if it's minus 30 here at home, I'm still smoking meat for supper because that's what we enjoy. And having modern style smokers gives you the freedom to do that and the control. And I think we've shared some good messages today to inspire people to maybe look into it if they never have, and elevate their wild game culinary skills to a new level.
Awesome. Well, Brad, thanks so much for allowing me to come on. It was a great chat. Anytime we can talk cooking equipment and food, I'm all in. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Brooks. We hope to inspire people to reconnect with nature and appreciate where your food comes from by harvesting your own. For more information on getting started or to learn specifics about the Field to Fork experience, visit harvestyourown.ca and follow on Facebook and Instagram. Check back often for new material, recipes, and videos that are posted regularly. Please subscribe to Harvest Your Own podcast and take the time to rate and review the show to help us build a dedicated core of passionate hunters as our regular audience. Until next time, embrace the outdoors and all it has to offer. Thanks for joining us.